Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today I want to dive into a Supreme Court decision that's making waves and might not be the win some people thought it was. Let's break it down together. This summer, the Supreme Court handed down a ruling in the Loper Bright case. When it first came out, conservatives hailed it as a major victory against federal overreach, like a new weapon for red states to slow or even stop policies they oppose. Think protections for transgender rights, clean energy goals, and similar policies. But here's the twist: the decision might end up backfiring, especially with Donald Trump heading back to the White House. Here's the setup. The ruling overturned something called Chevron deference. If you're not familiar, that's a legal principle that's been around since 1984, giving federal agencies a lot of freedom to interpret vague laws passed by Congress. In simple terms, if a law wasn't crystal clear, courts would generally side with the agency's interpretation of how to enforce it. And let me tell you, this was a huge deal. It's been cited in over 18,000 federal court cases. But before we get into the details, hit the subscribe button, like this video, and leave your thoughts in the comments. Thank you for your support. Well, that's going now. The Supreme Court essentially said, courts, it's your job to scrutinize federal rules more closely. Initially, conservatives thought, awesome. Let's use this to tear down Biden-era regulations. But guess what? This cuts both ways. Experts are already saying it's going to give blue states a much stronger position to challenge Trump's upcoming policies, everything from immigration to healthcare and civil rights. Take California, for example. They're already gearing up for legal battles. They even called a special session to allocate funds for lawsuits. And it's not just them. States like New York, Massachusetts, and Minnesota are mapping out strategies to block Trump administration moves before they even start. Democratic governors in places like Colorado and Illinois are teaming up to form a coalition focused on protecting what they're calling essential democratic rights. Okay, let's pause for a second. The irony here is wild. Back in 1984, when Chevron became law, it was actually a conservative court's gift to the Reagan administration. It gave agencies more leeway to deregulate industries and cut back on federal oversight. Fast forward to now, and the same principle they once loved has been flipped on its head. Now that it's gone, it's going to make it way harder for Trump's team to undo existing regulations or push through their own agenda. Leonardo Coelho, a policy expert, summed it up perfectly. He said this ruling essentially handcuffs federal agencies. It limits what they can change or undo, so much so that it's kind of ironic a conservative majority court made this call just as a conservative president is about to take office. Even some of Trump's allies are realizing this could complicate things. Sure, there are folks like Vivek Ramaswamy, one of Trump's key advisors, who are hyping it up as a way to shrink the federal government. But most legal experts are saying, hold on, it's not that simple. Without strong backing in Congress, sweeping changes like restrictions on abortion or cutting Medicaid are going to face a lot more legal challenges. Trust me. Blue state attorneys general are already sharpening their pencils. One key area to watch is immigration. Any attempt to tighten restrictions or roll back protections could get tied up in court for years, thanks to this decision, and the same goes for environmental regulations. Blue states now have a much easier path to challenge rollbacks on things like climate policies and pollution standards. Here's an interesting tidbit about how we got here. The case itself was brought by New Jersey herring fishermen. Yes, fishermen who were upset about a federal rule requiring them to pay for third-party observers on their boats. These observers, who cost up to $710 a day, were there to make sure the fishermen followed the rules. The fishermen argued that the rule was unfair and lacked any real legal justification. Lower court sided against them, citing Chevron deference, but the Supreme Court took their side and overturned that decades-old precedent. Chief Justice John Roberts wrote the majority opinion, basically saying that courts, not agencies, should have the final say on interpreting laws. Meanwhile, Justice Elena Kagan, one of the dissenters, made a pretty passionate argument about why Chevron was so important. She pointed out how it's been crucial for everything from clean air and water to food safety and financial regulation. So what does this mean moving forward? Well, for starters, we're going to see a lot more legal fights. Any major policy Trump tries to push through is going to face challenges from blue states, and those challenges now have a better shot at succeeding. At the end of the day, this ruling might have been celebrated as a conservative win at first, but it's already proving to be a double-edged sword. It's going to be fascinating to watch how this plays out. And you can bet we'll be following these legal battles closely right here on the channel. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Do you see this as a win for checks and balances or headache waiting to happen? And as always, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next deep dive. See you next time.